What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Barefoot Garage. We got one more thing to do before Oktoberfest, and it's rebuild those headlight mechanisms. Nice headlight mechanism. Floppy headlight mechanism. So we need to rebuild these. So what we're planning to do is I'm going to go ahead and tackle one side and get that figured out, and then hopefully at the event we're going to have a chance to pull my car out and show you guys how to do it in person, and I'll save one side, the worst side, for when we get there. All the driving is pretty much daytime, so not really worried about it. Plus I got plenty of candle power if I need it, and one of the headlights is still sagging. So what I've done is key on, headlights on, key off, put it in parking lights, and then unhook the battery. That leaves the headlights up, there's no power, and everything is good to go. There's no big draw on the power when I pull the battery cable off. So I will go ahead and start tackling this side. First thing we're gonna do, pop off the eyebrow, pop off the cover, we'll get this guy out of there, we'll take the headlight out, and then we'll take a look at what's gonna take to get it rebuilt. All right, we have our naked assembly here. We have the bucket, we have the mechanism. You can see where that zip tie would be. This one is actually not in terrible shape. You got bushings here, zip tie for that, replacement for these blocks and these adjusters, and I'm not sure if that's supposed to be bent like that or not. And then we'll come down and we've got bushings and clips for these arms, placement pins for some of these guys right here. So the next thing we're gonna probably go ahead and do, you can see the wiper, which actually mine is not in terrible shape. This is the first time I've had this apart this far, at least in my car here. So you can see this car was originally LO71 black. Not my favorite color for 914, not the original hood, so don't worry about that. But yeah, this car was originally a black car, and then when the finish went on, it got sprayed this cool yellow, which in my opinion is kind of like a 73, 74 yellow. It's very close to a factory yellow, whether or not that's what they used. Besides the point. It's actually a time you can see, this is probably the worst rust on my car, is just in this track right here. They have fiberglass this. Maybe one day I'll come in and kind of repair that, but for now, that is not a functional item, and the car doesn't really see a lot of rain, so I'm not really worried about it. So it's also a good time to take a look at this seal if you need it. So the next thing we're gonna do, let's go ahead and pull out a couple of adjusters and the spring, pull this guy out, and if it needs to get cleaned up or painted or anything, we'll go ahead and do that. Take the zip tie off, get this pin out over here, get these out, and see if we can get the whole pivot out. I do not know if I need to pull out this corner marker assembly to get to the ones on the backside here, but I have a feeling the answer is yes. So you can kind of see the overspray where everything is on this. So let me see if I can get the camera set up and we'll get at it. All right, you got all that right? Pretty easy. So I'll give you guys a quick walkthrough as we put it back together. I think I am gonna take a little time and clean up in here and maybe put a little paint in it. I've got a couple of spots where I can see some rust. I'd like to just kind of clean this up and make it black and get rid of all this overspray. So I'll probably pull this back, shoot inside here black, make sure that this bolt is in good shape, pull the high harness back, ignore my dent that I made for my headlights to fit. So we're going to get this cleaned up. A couple of pro tips. You definitely need some type of Allen socket. It's way better. I recommend, I don't have corner lights, so this works for me. Go ahead and pull this out so that you can see through this hole to get to the ones that are right there. There's two here. And then go ahead and pull it apart. You can see on one of my buckets, you can see some water got on there, so I'm gonna kind of wire brush this. I'm gonna clean this up and paint it black, and I'll clean that up and paint it black. So clean it up, paint it black, and go from there. So one of the cool things, 914 rubber is one of the best resources. Sometimes it's not even for parts, it's just for knowledge. This is my early car, 72, wiper or linkage for the headlight. It is metal and it has bushings. They sent replacement bushings. Cool. But apparently some of the other styles use this nylon type. And the same length, same thing, everything, but there's no bushing to it. It's got a little more flex, and maybe it's a little more forgiving, so I don't know which one I'm gonna do. So maybe I'll post and say, hey, 914 Gurus, which one would you put in your car? So really you have to change like the whole mechanism to make sure that you change these out. So do the one that you want first. And we are ready to put this thing back together. Got all my small parts in here, all my hardware, all the old parts for reference. And I did take time to kind of clean and paint these. They were kind of a silver color. I'll have to ask somebody that knows better than me what the actual color they're supposed to be is, but I taped off that bronze or that brass, and I've made ready for those bushings. I did clean these up. I didn't try to like fix the overspray or do anything. I just cleaned them up. And I did go ahead and put in the new eyebrow bushings. Pretty simple, you just kind of pop those in. So we've got this. I have an early car, 72, so it does have the metal push rod. And I am running these KC 7-inch LED headlight replacements. I believe they're listed for a JK. I got them on eBay for a screaming deal, and they are super bright. The only detriment is, see how much taller they are than a regular light? I had to do a little bit of body work to make sure that they fit in the car. So we're gonna start getting these small parts, everything set up, and I'll show you guys how to put it back together. All right, we're starting with our brush, hardware, and the rubber flap. Now, my car had a much larger screw on the bottom, so I did go ahead and punch this hole out. So I'm just gonna push this in here by hand and hold the speed nut on the back just to get it started. Remember to match up the curves of these two pieces. And then you can kind of see how that brush is gonna go into place. So we are really trying to seal this as much as we can. So if I take my old piece of rubber, you can see that it went kind of like this. It went a little bit like that behind those brushes. And so the rubber created an additional seal in addition to the little bristles here. So it's missing on the other side. I don't really have a good reference, but I'll show you guys that up close once I get it buttoned up. So old rubber piece, new rubber piece. I'm just gonna use this screwdriver and kind of punch myself a hole through there so I know that it lines up, and fold it. Get my screw, get my clamp piece, and we'll go ahead and put this guy in. So I'm gonna go through here, I'm gonna go through here, and we're gonna get it buttoned in to the car. All right, so this is the way that my car was put together. Brush, rubber flap coming down, and the arm actually came through this rubber flap secondary. So I'll probably cut a little bit of slit in that. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct, but that's how it is when it came apart, which I don't think it had ever been apart. And that side's missing the rubber. So I think it's just an additional seal. I don't think it makes a big difference. So now that that is in, we are gonna go ahead and get our pivot set up, and we'll get the bucket back in. We can adjust that stop and move on from there. All right, you have two headlight assembly pivots. The 3-bolt one goes on this side. The 2-bolt one goes on this side. I recommend you have the wheel out, and you probably also want to take out your corner light here, which is just a 13 or a 10, I can't remember which, in order to access this a little bit easier. You definitely want to get a socket for your Allen key to be able to put these in, but it's such a tight fit, you kind of have to fit the whole assembly as a whole. So now that these are kind of loaded, I'll set them to the side and we'll take a look at the main assembly here. Make sure that your bronze pivot is in and that this is tight. If this is not here or wrong, it won't work. And basically when we do this, this is going to slot onto the stop, and it's going to be right here on my two pivots. So those pivots will hold this guy in place. We'll kind of push that rubber thing down for now, and then we'll make sure that it moves freely, and then we'll worry about getting the wiring and the push rod hooked back up. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the corner light out, and then we'll see about sliding these guys in place. Okay, so another quick note on these guys here. They have matching backing plates, and my understanding is that this is some of the gross adjustment on the headlight bucket, and so it's gonna be from the inside, from the outside, and then there's two Allen bolts that go through here. to hold this guy in place. So more or less, what you're going to have to do is get your plates ready, set them to the side or put them somewhere that you can get them. Get these guys in here, and I'm going to probably shoot a little bit of lithium on there just to be sure. And then we'll go ahead and we'll work these things into place here. So that's the general state of where they're going to be going. And so we are going to start putting this thing together. Success. Nice pivoting assembly, so much smoother and nicer. I want to make sure that it's got the nice absolute stops up and down. So really this is just the hard up stop. So if you can't get enough up angle on your light, then we'll need to adjust that a little bit. So I did put a little grease on there, a little silicone or white silicone, and I've just lined these plates up to be exactly where they were before, which is a good starting place for an alignment. I'm going to leave it at that. So at this point, we need to see about getting a little bit more of a slit cut in here, put our bushings in our push rod, and start assembling that part. So the nice guys at 914 Rubber give you two options. My car had a metal push rod, and they give you the Delrin or plastic or whatever it is, bushings that go in that. It also comes with a complete Delrin or plastic push rod. For my car, I think I'm going to keep the metal ones. I kind of like them, and it just seems, I like some of the cool, unique things about the early cars. So I'm going to keep these on the shelf. We'll save them, but we're going to need these little bushings in both sides. So really the push rod arm comes from the back is what raises and lowers my light. So let me reposition the camera and I'll show you guys how that goes together. All right, hopefully this is a good angle here. Motor, relay, cover for the early style lights, and this is where that push rod comes through, and we'll use the Delrin one as our example here. It's going to come through my brushes, and it's going to go right on to this guy with an E-clip, and it's going to come up, and it's going to, let me pull this out of the way, right here, hit that push rod pivot, that bronze pivot, on the headlight. So it is not retained on this side, it is retained on this side. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and put my bushings on here, slide the metal one on, and then clip it on this side and see how tight that is. The headlights are in the up position, and that's where I want them for this job. So you guys can see I used the push rod to seat those bushings. They're pretty snug. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from the outside of the car, through the rubber, through the brush, and I'm going to go onto the headlight bucket side first, hopefully. There we go. And then we're going to just kind of pry it and get it in its place to go. Actually, let's go onto the other side first. Go onto this side first, now we can get it over and onto the headlight bucket side. So there is a washer that goes on the outside here, and then we put our little E-clip in, and then we are in business. So let's pop this guy in here. I may need to compress that with some pliers or something, and then these guys will be ready to rock and roll. All right, pivots are in, new bushings here, this all cleaned up, new bushing here, my arm is in, brush, rubber, all in right here, and new bushing and new clip here. I will say I did find that the new little Delrin washer for this spot, right down here, was a little too thick, so I used the old one. I have not mic'd it, but it is a little bit thicker. The old one is a super nice tight fit, so we're just going to go with the old one there. So from this point, we need to snap our adjusters in and go ahead and put the rest of this piece together, and then we'll be putting the headlight and the eyebrow back in place. All right, so we've got new adjuster blocks. So we have two new adjuster blocks, one for the top, one for the side, and they basically just slot in here. So from this point, we are going to be putting this guy back in and getting it set up so that you can do some adjustment on your headlights. We have one spring that we're going to put in here. It's going to go click back and hold it so that you have a little bit of a tension. So we'll go ahead and pop our adjuster screws in there. When I took these out, I just kind of pried them out, and so I hope that it should just pop right back in. So one adjuster for up and down, and one adjuster for left and right. And so we'll go ahead and start getting this guy in place and just starting to run these adjuster screws in with a Phillips head. All right, quick note, the new adjusters are an Allen key and the old ones are a Phillips head. So if you want to use a Phillips head, stick with the old style. So I did decide to stick with the old Phillips head adjusters. To be honest, that's just what I'm going to have when I'm out on the road. I got my spring propped in there. I believe that is the correct location for it. And so from here out, we can put the top on, put the light in, put the eyebrow in. It does come with a new zip tie. I elected to reuse the old reusable, super old school zip tie here. So I'm kind of doing a mix of new and old parts. So we're going to go ahead and get our light fitted, and then we'll start putting the rest of it together. And we got our nice new white surround in there. Does look like it needs a little bit of alignment. Probably needs to come up a little bit more, but until I aim the headlights, we're not going to know. Let's see if it'll go down nicely. All right, looks like it closed fine. Probably need a little bit of adjustment on this eyebrow. And I may need a little bit of adjustment to bring this down so we can line these guys up. So I'll play with the adjustment there and we'll get it just right. All right, that's gonna do it for the Barefoot Garage tonight. Headlights are rebuilt, and headlights, I mean one. If you are coming to Oktoberfest, I will be rebuilding the other one in person, and I'll be happy to show you guys how to do it. Doing a little clinic for those folks that are coming out. This side, the driver's side, is way worse. It has got problems, but I'm not going to show you what it is, and I'm not going to fix it till we get there. So, passenger side, good. Driver's side, down. We're going to fix that in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned to the Barefoot Garage Jacks right here on YouTube, and you can follow us between episodes at Barefoot Garage Jacks over on Instagram. See you guys.